Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The platform.
It's only sport. It's only sport. It is only sport. This is the podcast from today's show, aired on the platform. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh, 1 till 4 every afternoon live. And some of the highlights of this program now in podcast form. Was that fair? Did the Aussies cheat? Or did Bairstow stupidly leave his crease? We talk Ashes cricket. Craig Cumming joining us because he was playing in a test match when our wicketkeeper, now the England coach, did something pretty similar. He details 3 MCC members suspended from the long room, butt whacking, bum smacking, doddery old dribblers. It got a little irie at Lords. The Warriors, what's the wash up from Friday night then? Was South just too good in the conditions? To quote Steve Hansen, is that one of those flush the dunny and move on ones? Plus, Justin Marshall. Who will the All Black backline be when the side is announced on Friday? But as always, we begin the program, tablets in hand. I say, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Well, that was a wake-up call. Whew, that was a right wake-up call Friday night for the Warriors. Smacking the chops. A reminder that every team in this comp is dangerous. That Souths are, in fact, a very, very good side. And this despite coming in, having won just one of the last 5. No, I don't think our guys were complacent. Not at all. No, I don't think the occasion got the better of them, the record crowd, all of that. Not at all. Yes, I do believe Souths were better on the night. Played much better, played smarter. The key stat for me was around about the 60th minute mark. Errors. Warriors 8, Souths 1. They didn't make mistakes. We did, and that's what cost us. First half, I thought the Warriors were pretty much in control, as a matter of fact. Lots of sets, lots of good field position, but just didn't capitalise. A bit too predictable in attack down that right side. Didn't really threaten Souths like I thought that we would. This was a moment game for me. Not season-defining, but a reminder, a good kick in the pants that every team in this comp can beat you. Blah, blah, blah. I know it's a cliche. Blah, blah, blah. Every team's good. I know. Yeah, whatever. Here's the tells, though. Souths had a 97% completion rate, 35 from 38 sets. They committed 3 errors in 80 minutes, our guys 13. That's 1 every 5 minutes on average. Total momentum killer. Forget the referee. I've read a lot of commentary about the ref and Big Adam being in the bin, all of that. Nothing about the ref's performance was to blame at all. In fact, I think the Warriors got a fair few good, legitimate calls go our way in the first half. We just couldn't capitalise, couldn't convert field position into pressure, into repeat sets. Too much aerial kicking, too much bombing with the wind and the rain at our backs in the first half. A few grubbers along the ground might have been a bit of variation. If, buts, maybe, coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't. Souths were better. Eat it. That's sport. Not many teams, I don't think, would have beaten Souths in that mood on Friday night under any conditions. Warriors got to accept that and try and figure out how to deal with, play and be able to beat these types of teams playing that brand of footy in that weather. Flush the dunny and move on because there's another massive game Saturday night versus the Eels. Souths were a better side than us, the Warriors, on Friday night. They were much better. They played much better. I got nothing to say. Fair play to them.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
114 Sports News headlines on.
Yeah, well, I've got the
He's
same
in the
thing.
lead.
I was about
He's
to
in the
say
lead.
we've had a tip off from the texter that he's in the lead. I can't quite. I've got the same video up as you, the in-car cam, which is now looking behind him.
Yeah, no, it's a bugger. I've got to turn around the other way.
Yeah, but Shane van Gisbergen in the lead of the first ever street race of NASCAR Cup Series in Chicago. So this is quite an incredible...
And the first he's ever driven. Remember last week he was saying to a week ago he was saying to us he gets about 2 hours practice in the car.
Barely any. And he was fastest in the practice. Qualified third.
This is brilliant.
He's now in the lead of the race. This is incredible. We'll keep you updated with this. I'll start off with some rugby news concerning the Blues and Super Rugby. Vern Cotter has been appointed the new head coach of the Auckland-based franchise, signing a 2-year deal to take the reins until the end of the 2025 Super Rugby Pacific season. He'll be joined by assistant coach Jason O'Halloran, who has also inked a 2-year deal with the Blues. Kiwi golfer Daniel Hillier has produced a barnstorming finish to claim his maiden World Tour title at the British Masters. He finished 10 under par, hit an eagle on something like the 17th hole, I think it was, to take a 2-shot lead late in the final round. Incredible result for Daniel Hillier. Cricket, the second Ashes test was as enthralling as the first at Lords. It ended up with a similar result, Australia winning on a tense final day. Mitchell Starc taking the final wicket, dismissing England for 327 in their final innings, securing a 43-run win. Australia now with a 2-zip lead in the series. The next test heading to Leeds. Post-match, though, there was drama on the field with Jonny Bairstow being stumped, and people didn't think it was fair, but by the rules it technically was. But is it in the spirit of the game? The Australian players, post-match, were abused. That's a strong word to use, but you could say abused. By members inside the Lord's Pavilion in the long room. Vision from...
Wash your mouth, walking past and cheating on the bloody young boy with the fit industrial again. I'd like to see him put it right between my buttocks and give it a good thing. Enough of that, and I'll be ready to go out of there. I'll be ready to stop that right now, you bloody ruffian. Ha! Pretty much like that, I think.
Pretty much like that. Vision from inside the long room as players left the field at lunch, not post-match, at lunch, showed players were yelled at by several members and labelled cheats. Plenty of boos as well. IndyCar, Scott Dixon has climbed to second on the season standings after finishing second in the latest round at Mid-Ohio, but he has lost further ground to championship leader and teammate Alex Palou. Palou claiming his third straight win, finishing 5 seconds ahead of Dixon. There was a Formula One race. Who knew? Because it's the same thing that happens at these Grand Prix every time. Max Verstappen, Red Bull driver, 2-time defending champion. He's got a humongous lead in the championship right now. He's won his 5th straight race. And Red Bull have won every single race this year. How can you really get behind this sport when it's dominated to such a degree?
Until you've just said, I didn't even know there's an F1 race on. He's actually pulling away now. He's now got a 1.5 second lead with 2 laps to go. Van Gisbergen is about to win his very first NASCAR race.
This is incredible. This is unreal. Kiwi sprinter Zoe Hobbs had a hell of a weekend. She ran a 10.96 in the women's 100 metres heats at the Resist Sprint International Meet in Switzerland, a World Athletics Continental Tour Challenger event. This was earlier today. Hobbs announcing her feat on social media, saying that she'd bettered the 2024 Paris Olympics qualifying time, which is 11.07 seconds, and she also set a personal best, a new national record, and an area record at La Chaux-de-Fonds. So, assuming that the New Zealand Olympic Committee aren't a bunch of idiots, she'll be picked for the Olympics.
Well, as long as she's fit, she goes.
As long as she's fit, she goes. Yep. A great weekend for high jumper Hamish Kerr as well. He won his first ever Diamond League event. Joelle King, one of our best squash players, probably our best women's player, claimed her 10th national title over the weekend to equal the record set by squash great Dame Susan Devoy back in 1992. Australian tennis star Nick Kyrgios, who was runner-up to Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon in 2022, he's pulled out of this year's Wimbledon tournament with a wrist injury, and it looks like they're all slowing down, so I think there's a safety car now in this Chicago NASCAR race, but Van Gisbergen's still out in front. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
SVG, Shane van Gisbergen, superstar, kicking NASCAR butt today, joining us from NBC Sports, senior NASCAR correspondent, Nate Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us. As you can imagine, motorsports fans, sports fans in this country, we're just wowed out by this race from SVG.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that U.S. race fans and some of NASCAR's best drivers are wowed by SVG as well. It's something when Chase Elliott, who many consider to be the best road course racer in NASCAR, 2020 Cup champion, he said after the race that SVG can go home and tell his friends how bad we all are. The stat that really stands out to me is that SVG's best lap today was 0.8 seconds, 0.8 of a second faster than the field. His third fastest lap was nearly 0.3 faster than the field. He toyed with these guys. He was in another league. I'm almost speechless to describe how good he was.
Okay, so let's just establish a couple of facts here. This is the full NASCAR field, right? This is all the guns racing?
This is the best drivers in America. This is the top level of NASCAR. This is Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. These are the best drivers in the country here.
Okay, they don't race on street circuits that often, though. So how many street circuits do they get to race on? When was the last one, for example?
0.
Right.
This is the first street race in NASCAR Cup Series history. They've had some street races with stock cars before over here, but very much lower levels and very sporadic. They haven't had one, I think, for years in a NASCAR sanctioned event. So this is the first time they've ever done it in 75 years of the premier championship level Cup Series in NASCAR. And so none of these guys had any experience. And it was evident from the first practice. Denny Hamlin was the pole sitter. He won the pole position, was the fastest qualifier. And he noted right after qualifying first, with SVG qualifying third, he said that he's just lightning fast, was Denny Hamlin's description of SVG. And Denny Hamlin, again, one of the best road course drivers in NASCAR. He said where SVG picked up all his speed was because he was extremely good beside the wall. Denny Hamlin said, all of us aren't using those last 3 inches next to the wall. SVG in his first NASCAR race ever somehow was able to put his car right up against the wall, use the inches that the other NASCAR drivers weren't using, and that is what gained him so much speed, and that's what made him winner today.
Nate, I don't know if you've watched any supercars or whether you get to watch any supercars. That's how they race supercars down under in Oz, that they bump and grind, but especially on the street circuits, that they run within millimetres of those walls.
Yeah, it's evident that over here they don't,
Right.
or at least they don't yet. I mean, maybe with enough practice they would get there. But I mean, clearly he had a feel for putting his car against the barriers like the best drivers in NASCAR just don't have yet. And maybe they get there eventually. But for him to be able to do that and do it in his first time ever in competition against Cup guys, and to do it against guys. You talk about, slobber knocker, slam bang racing. I mean, the guy he had to pass to get the win, he is trying to make the playoffs. He gets in the playoffs if he wins. And it would have been really easy for him just to, knock SVG out of the way if SVG sort of, left it open for him, and he didn't. He set him up just brilliantly, like he was a 6-time champion, just setting up a veteran move, making that pass, winning the race. It was
their crossover was Allen Iverson, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to use an American basketball reference, it was definitely the answer.
So I know that the race has just finished within an hour. This is Nate Ryan from NBC Sports with us, very generous for giving us his time after this. So, so what kind of reaction do you think overall from NASCAR racing? What are they going to think and do now? Are they going to want this guy racing next year for NASCAR? What?
I think, he said that after the race, that I think he said he's got one more year in supercars, that he's going to do one more year in Oz. I think he said in the TV interview with NBC, and then he said that he'd love to come over here. And, I think absolutely he will be looked at. And I think there's a chance, I don't know how the supercar schedule aligns with the other road courses on the NASCAR schedule this year, but this team that he's racing for, Trackhouse Racing, this Project 91 car, this is the whole concept. This is the idea, is they bring in drivers from other series around the world and want them to win. The previous driver in this car, this is the third time that this car has been started. The previous driver was Kimi Räikkönen, the 2007 Formula One champion. He had made 2 starts in this car on road courses the last 2 years. So at the moment, this was SVG's only announced race, but it would not surprise me at all if Trackhouse Racing said to Shane, we want you in this race this year, we want you in this race next year, and, that's a growing team. It would not surprise me if they looked at him, and especially when you consider, I don't have to tell you that, there are a lot of successful Kiwis and Australians over here. Scott McLaughlin, everybody has seen what Scott McLaughlin has done for Team Penske in IndyCar the last couple of years. So I think absolutely if SVG decides he wants to make a run at NASCAR after he, finishes up his supercars run next season, I think he would absolutely get a look.
Final question for you. What surprised you most? Because when we spoke to him a couple of Fridays ago, just as he was catching the plane actually to the States, and I asked him how much practice he gets in the car, and he said, I get about 50 minutes, then half an hour. Then he said, I'll kind of learn while I'm driving the race. And we're sitting here just stunned. So what did surprise you more? How fast he was driving, those lap times, or the fact that he's he's 0.8 of a second, as you say, quicker than everyone else, or the fact that he won the race?
I think the fact that he won, because anybody can put down a fast lap. That's the thing about racing. Not just NASCAR, but anywhere, but especially in NASCAR. That's what you always hear guys say, is that anybody can be fast. It's putting together an entire race. And in the case of NASCAR, this race was shortened, but everybody talks about it, that usually NASCAR races go 2 or 3 hours, and they have so many pit stops. For him to just parachute into this series and race against the best guys in the world, and like we were talking about, set up that winning pass in such a brilliant way against a desperate driver, the way he was able to win this race, the speed was impressive, but the racecraft was just off the charts. Like, they're going to be talking about this win for decades in NASCAR.
Thank you so much for your time, Nate. Absolutely brilliant talking to you, mate. Pleasure.
Hey, I really enjoyed it. My pleasure. Cheers.
Justin Marshall, 81 Test veteran of the All Blacks. He'll be calling the game on Sky Sport on Sunday morning when we play Argentina. That backline, who will Ian Foster pick? Finally, World Rugby seems to have been able to coordinate, or whether it's just the Six Nations and SANZAAR doing it ourselves, a tournament that's going to be the in-between years of the Rugby World Cup, where the Six Nations side, 4 of us, and then a couple of invitees. It sounds good. It sounds like a great concept. What are your thoughts? I'm hoping it gets off the ground.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah, I think it's what the game needs. I don't even feel that the word globalisation really needs to factor into it. I think what needs to happen is we need to see a side of rugby that we haven't seen before. We need to give the fans and supporters and people out there an opportunity to see a competition or contests that they just haven't seen and are not repetitive. To reinvigorate everybody, including the players, like the fact that players get to experience something different, format-wise, competition-wise, whatever it might be. I think the fact that the Crusaders have now got this opportunity in February to go out and play Munster and play the Bristol Bears, that's just fantastic for the game. And it's not the repetition that we've become used to. So absolutely, I like the idea that SANZAAR have come up to. Hopefully, and it looks like it's going to happen, it will all formulate into a really competitive, good tournament, and then a final with the two best sides competing in that. So, yeah, mate, I'm all for it. I'm all for innovation and change big time.
Justin Marshall with his 81 Test vet for the All Blacks on the sideline for Sky Sport. Well, the team will be announced, I think, Friday morning New Zealand time. But with the news over the weekend that both Leicester Fainga'anuku and Will Jordan didn't catch the plane, I'm a worry. This Will Jordan thing is really concerning to me. I don't feel we've ever had it fully explained as to exactly what this injury is and what the perhaps concussive effects are. But for the guy to be playing that final, then not be able to be fit enough to go to Argentina, is that a concern for you?
Yeah, I think unless it's precautionary, and they are using that word, aren't they? That they feel that the volume that he got after coming back from the problems that he had, and then obviously found his way back into some very good form. Any player, when they're in good form and get an opportunity to pull on the All Black jersey, would want to do that. So it looks to me a bit of macro managing for a guy that they're probably going to use a lot at the Rugby World Cup. I'm not sure of the extent of it, so it's pretty hard to comment.
Yeah.
But it would be a concern if they were saying that it wasn't precautionary, that he actually needs to stand down. But I think they're probably just being proactive in that regard. Obviously, you mentioned Leicester Fainga'anuku, who I thought could possibly have been getting a start. Well, that won't be happening now. And then you throw into the mix as well, Marty, Anton Leonard-Brown, who's down through suspension, and equally Mark Taylor, who's not available. Probably a quite different side than what Ian Foster was expecting to name as his test of the year, given the problems that he has injury-wise.
Well, let's look at that backline then and agree or disagree. I think Aaron and Richie are 9 and 10. We agreed on that?
We are agreed, yeah.
Okay. 12 and 13, I think are going to be Geordie and Rico, and we can debate whether or not Rico's had a great Super Rugby season because he perhaps hasn't, but Geordie's been playing at 12 for a good reason for the Hurricanes. So I think that's 12 and 13 in concrete.
Yeah, and equally they're the incumbents, so they've got to be given their opportunity to retain their shirts. They were the pairing preferred last year, and given, like I said, the injuries and Anton Leonard-Brown now out of the mix as well, and the possibility that Fainga'anuku could have been looked at centre, that's not going to be happening. So, yeah, I agree with you. They will be the centre combination.
Well, let's just pause for here before we get on to the back three then, which is obviously going to be, I think, the selections that we'll all debate. How important is it to you? And being a past All Black, you know this. Okay, so I've performed for the All Blacks. I've performed for the coach. I've done it over consecutive tests last season. It doesn't give you a right to claim that spot, but for me, if I'm Ian Foster, I go back to what I know, and those guys are proven in those jerseys, and therefore that's the combination I start the year with.
Yeah, look, I think that he's shown that quite regularly, that he knows the combination, he knows the players that he feels not only are loyal to him, they've been performers for him in the past, albeit it's been a bit of a rocky past. But he does tend to go to what he knows, and I think for the first Test match of the year, he will do that. Now, let's make this statement right now between you and I, Marty, because I know you feel the same. The names we're throwing out here are not necessarily the names that we would start in this Test match. These are the players that we think, because of the way Ian Foster thinks, he will start. Are we in agreement with that?
Absolutely, mate. So I'm picking Caleb on the left wing. I'm picking Narawa on the right wing because he was selected in the squad. Sean Stevenson wasn't. I've got Bowden at fullback, and I've got both Damien McKenzie and Stevenson on the bench.
Well, there you go. We've pretty much come to an agreement. We had no pre-banter about what this backline was going to be. The only fly in the ointment for me is I think he might start Damien McKenzie at fullback. I know what we've just said about he knows what he can get out of Bowden Barrett. He knows the reliability of him. And so in my mindset, you can put Bowden at fullback and you know what you're going to get from him in any Test match. This is an opportunity to see where Damien McKenzie has progressed to in the last couple of years since you really have used him. So it's the perfect chance where Jordan's out and you're going to start Richie at 10. You know, should there be any problems, Bowden can come off the bench and fulfil either spot at 10 or 15. So my mindset is you've got to get Damien McKenzie out there and see whether or not he can produce the goods at fullback and he can be a World Cup fullback for the All Blacks. This is the opportunity, so I would go for him.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. I am the self-appointed Minister of Common Sense. Next! And just like Tory Whānau, the Wellington Mayor, I'm going to ask, do you know who I am? Have you got any idea who I am? Next!
Marvin?
I'm the guy that does next. I'm the self-appointed Minister of Common Sense. And I will say whether or not Bairstow was out of his crease and, because he was, deserved to be run out. Next! Which he did, because he's got a habit he's got to break and get out of. And this habit of putting your foot back and then wandering down the pitch, well, it's just... he got caught out. If I was the Aussie wicketkeeper Carey, I would have done exactly the same. Do you know why? Because the Aussies don't care whether it's fair. What's fair to them is we all wring our hands and debate whether or not it's in the spirit of the game and whether it's cricket. They just look at the scoreboard, Lachlan. That's all they care about. They're 2-0 up in the Ashes, and England are going to have to rewrite history if they want to win this Ashes series, which they're not. So, question for you. Next! Has Bairstow got anything to bitch about?
Well, I'm not so...
Here we go.
No, well, I'm just going to say I'm not the most... what's the word? When you're smart with something.
No one gets an A in the class. Everyone gets graded the same.
I don't know the Test cricket rules. Test cricket
no
rules.
No many trees, no bull rush, no pies in the tuck shop.
To the point is big
Shut
big
down
cricket
the traffic in Lambton Key, ladies and gentlemen.
My question
no point
is,
having cars.
So, Bairstow touches the crease, which is a batter's way of essentially saying that the ball is over. But the umpire has to do something, or say something, or do something that suggests that the ball is over,
well,
right?
I think he's got to call over or signal over.
Right, which he didn't do. So the ball is still live. So what Bairstow did with his foot doesn't matter.
No.
And so he's out of his crease.
Yes.
And the ball is still live, therefore they can stump him.
That's it.
So what are you crying about, son?
Is it dirty pool?
No, this is the whole spirit of the game thing really frustrates me because
there's no such thing, mate.
There's no such thing. Two, any other sport you cut corners, you bend the rules. You know, you do it in baseball where you'll be pitching on the mound and there'll be a guy on second base who'll be he'll be like half a metre away from the bag and you'll throw it back and get him out. And that's fair. There was a move that the Philadelphia Eagles kept on using in the NFL last season.
Oh, the rolling maul.
Where it was essentially a rolling maul. That's what it was. And it wasn't against the rules. People didn't like it, and the NFL have now outlawed it.
Well, they've outlawed it because it wasn't Tom Brady doing it.
Well, they outlawed it because the Eagles were getting touchdowns from it, and it wasn't Tom Brady. Because it was a black quarterback,
It was a black quarterback.
It was the racist NFL.
No. Listen, we've had... Martin says, Chris, as a text, what's the point of the popping crease white line across the front of a crease in the first place? I mean...
Yeah.
to stay behind, says Chris. Look, to me, it's the same as the man cat. I believe in the man cat because what you're doing is you're extracting Michael. You're taking the piddle. You're trying to crib. You're trying to get an advantage.
Yeah, and you're utilising fair rules to get an advantage.
That's what you're doing. Now, if you're cribbing out of your crease in cricket, and what you're trying to do is so that if you've got a quick single, and you do this when there's only a certain amount of runs to get to win, and it might be a wickets to runs equation, you're doing it to get that advantage so you can race up the other end quicker and avoid a run out.
And it's a bit like in rugby.
So I'm telling you, you do it, I'm going to knock your bails off. Stay behind the crease, wait till the ball's hit, and then run. Otherwise, you're going to be out. There's no such thing as fair play to this. That's just what I'm going to do. And you're going to cop it and go.
Yeah, and the mentality behind it is very similar to, say, in rugby league when you're running the ball out of dummy half, but there's 2 or 3 guys that are offside and you're running into them to milk a penalty.
That's what you do.
That's what it is. It's the same mentality.
Okay, when it comes to England losing this Ashes series...
Next!
They're going to point to a couple of different things. They are going to point to the fact that umpires' calls went against them. They're going to point to...
Well, one win against Australia yesterday.
Oh, well, let's talk about that. Did Mitchell Starc catch that
That
ball?
is a catch. By the rules, it's not.
See, I think it's a catch.
But it is a catch.
Because he's got control of the ball.
He's got control of the ball.
Now,
But then he uses the ground when he falls down and gets up.
He used the ground because he was falling on the ground, and it is a natural thing for his hands to go. What he needed to do was use his just one hand to guide himself and hold the other up. But to do that, he probably would have broken his wrist or snapped his arm doing that, right?
Well,
It's an unnatural way to fall.
Exactly.
But when he gets the ball in his hands for that split second, it's clear he's got control of the ball. Now, I don't know what the rule is in terms of do you have to have control of it for 1 or 2 seconds, because you can get it, juggle it, and I've watched people lose it then. But, okay, let's go back to Trent Boult in the World Cup final against England, who had that catch over the rope, remember?
Yeah.
Had control of the ball, stood back on the boundary rope. It was called a 6.
Yeah.
Those 6 runs were quite crucial in the end when England beat us.
Yeah, but that was the rule, wasn't it?
That's the rule.
That if you catch it, but your foot touches the rope, it's out.
Hey, Bazball.
Next!
Hey, Bazball. Let's do a Big Moan Monday about Bazball. Moan. I'm moaning sick all the time. Bazball is a farce. Bazball. In this Ashes series, it's clown cricket. That's what it is. Bing bong, cuckoo, la la. Hasn't worked. Hasn't really looked like working. Risk reward, blah blah. Risk reward, blah blah. What it is dumb cricket. That's the truth. First test. England 393 for 8. First day, decided to go risk reward, whereas good sense, good calm judgment, and another 40 to 50 easily gettable runs, they probably would have won that test. 1-0 in the series, and then you go to Lords, and Aussie would have had to go all out attack to try and level it. Instead, Aussie bat well, first inning at Lords, 400 plus. The Poms go ballistic in reply, 188 for 1, but then just when they're in a really good position, Bazball. Let's Bazball. Go berserk, go nutso. Fill your Instagram page with kooky ram shots and hand signals. 188 for 1 becomes 278 for 4. 3 stupid wickets lost. Needless dumb shots. And this with Australia, their spinner down and their fielders on the boundary. England pull and hook into their hands, all out for 325. Once again, had the chance to turn the screw, and once again, no. Bazball. And now England down 2-0, and there goes the series. England cricket is Ja Morant to Australians' Nikola Jokic. One team is all about, look at me, how clever am I as I posterise on you. You keep liking those Instagram posts, Bazball fans. Aussie, meanwhile, they just plod along like Jokic and they win. That's win. Hear that? That's win. That's what the whole goddamn point is. There is a place for Bazball, for your little Bazballs, but thinking this is going to win this Ashes series is nothing but a bad call.
Devlin.
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The platform.
Former Black Cap, now coach of the Otago Sparks and the T20 comp here in New Zealand, Craig Cumming. He was on the pitch when a similar kind of incident happened where we did a Bairstow. You played in that test where Fleming was captain and McCullum ran out Murley. So we'll go back to that in a second. But first and foremost, was that the right thing to do by the Australians? Was that fair under the, I suppose, the traditions of the game?
Yeah, you got to be careful. There's 2 parts. There's the spirit of the game.
And then the laws of the game, and under the laws of the game, it's out. Unfortunately, the over wasn't called, the ball wasn't dead. So, that case is, yes, the umpires or the third umpire makes the correct call. What you do is you make a decision, I suppose, morally. Do we believe that we actually want to accept that decision and we're willing to take it and we're going to walk off and take everything that comes with it? Well, and you got to trust your gut. I think, Marty, what's happened is, and 10, 15 years ago, no problems at all. The game's changed a huge amount in the last sort of 10 years, where I think the spirit of the game has probably risen and the way we play the game has slightly changed. And to me, I look at that, if I was playing now, I was coaching now, I'd look at it and go, was he trying to take an unfair advantage by doing what he's doing? No. Can I understand that we thought the ball was dead, he was just walking down to tap gloves with his thing at the end of the over? Yes. I don't think in that situation I would want to uphold the appeal, so I'd withdraw it and ask him to come back for those reasons. But, again, it's that grey line between the laws of the game, just like the start catch, and the spirit of the game, and where you stand on that. I think, as I say, we've changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years, the way we play the game and what we view the difference between the laws and the spirit. And in that case, I think he wasn't trying to do anything untoward. The irony is we're now talking at a time, Marty, where the man cat is accepted.
Yeah.
But I still won't accept it.
No, I will argue with you straight away on that. Listen, what you're trying to do is you're trying to cheat. You are cribbing. You're trying to get an advantage and take a quick single. Now, it could be at a time of the game where runs are very precious. If you're out of your crease, you're warned, and if you do it again, I'm taking your bails off, mate, because you're extracting the Michael on me here. You are trying to actually, crib up, get a run, and I'm trying to stop you getting a run. So if you're out of your crease, bugger you, mate, you're out. I think that's completely different.
As long as, and I do too, but what I'm saying is once upon a time we used to talk about that. Is that the spirit of the game? No, we're not willing to accept it. But if they're willing to cheat, but we still see examples where people are just walking out casually and they're not trying to cheat. They're not trying to do that and they get run out. Yes, they're out under the laws of the game, but some of them are just wandering aimlessly.
Yeah, I thought Bairstow was wandering. I thought he was wandering too.
Yeah. And then Bairstow's got a bouncer, ducked under it. He's got adrenaline pumping. He's right. He sort of tapped his foot into the over. I'm going to go down and meet my mate and I'm going to punch gloves and we're going to win this test match. He's not doing that to try and steal a run. So, and he hasn't been batting out of his crease to try and get an advantage. He hasn't been trying to steal runs. So if he had been doing that and Keary'd been throwing it to try and run him out because he'd been batting out of his crease a long way, understand that. But in this case, he wasn't. There was nothing in it other than a bit of adrenaline wanting to go punch gloves. But Australia could say the same about Mitchell Starc. He took the catch. He thought it was fair. Under the spirit of the game, England could have put their hand up and said, yeah, that's a fair catch. So it's a grey area. And it just comes down to the individual and how they're willing to do it. Pat Cummins and the Australian side as opposed to England and the England side. And there's a lot of chat going on about, the way the game's been played. But if it happened to be me at this situation, I think the spirit of the would have been, no, don't uphold the appeal. But in saying that, Marty, we've got a whole lot of people making judgments that, contradict the way they used to play the game. So we've just got to be a little bit careful and being righteous in what we're saying.
All right, okay, so let's go back to 2006 then, and you were on the field when McCullum ran out Murali, who was going to congratulate Sangakkara for making a century. At the time, did you say anything? At the time, what was the chat in the dressing room afterwards?
No, see, it's funny because I was on the boundary and Sangakkara had batted the most amazing hour and a half with Murali where he got himself through to an amazing 100. When the ball went down to the boundary, I then just was running to get into position for Murali being on strike because I was on the boundary to Sangakkara. Then I looked up and he was out. And the appeal, and I saw the fingers up. I didn't even know what was going on. So I was an opening batter. So what I did, Marty, is I just ran straight off the pad up because I was close to the hut. And as an opener, I used to run off quickly ahead of everyone else. It wasn't really until the guys come into the change room and there was a little bit of chat, but I was more focused on, right, I've got to get out and bat. As soon as I got to the 5 metres onto the pitch, I got absolutely abused by every single Sri Lankan in the team. They came up to me and Sangakkara had a go at me. Jaya Wardner gave me those eyes. You thought Dale Steyn had angry eyes. Jaya Wardner that day. Seriously, Marty, I got scared because Joe Vardner just was giving it to me, and I'd just got on really well with them because we'd played them in Otago before that series. And they gave it to me for a good hour. And then I think we had lunch or something, we came in, and I was like, what the heck's gone on here? I didn't even really know. And then we went into lunch, and a few of our guys were a little bit like, hang on, no. So we just said, right, well, I'm getting in behind Brendan. You know, that's happened. We're not going to single out one of our teammates and throw him under the bus. Whether you like it or not, we're all in, and we've got to support our teammate. Probably now, if I looked at it, I didn't see it. And would I have seen anything? I don't know. That's what I mean. You can't have one opinion, you know, and then turn around. Like, the hardest thing Brendan's got is he's got that history to then come out and say, you can't do that. It's a little bit, you know, it's contradicting, isn't it, what you've done, some actions. But you can also say, I learned from that experience, and I'm a little bit more mature now, and I've got a better understanding of what's going on. But at that time, you know, my biggest thing was whatever happened, it happened. And as a team, we have to get in behind whoever made that decision, whether it was Flem and Baz. And I can tell you, I didn't want to get the angry eyes from Flem either. So I got in right behind him and just told the Sri Lankans where to go.
The Tight Five.
Fair call here. You're going on about the newsreader not pronouncing names properly, Martin, then referring the golfer as Hillier as opposed to Hillier. Look, Hillier is his French variation on the name, all right? Daniel. I think it's Hillier. Sometimes I look at it and I think Hillier. I think I'm pretty sure it's Hillier. Look, this is an extraordinary performance from this young man. We spoke to him last week. I really like this guy. We were in touch with him last year as he was trying to get his DP Tour card. And he's, you know, full of confidence. For somebody so young, he spent the last 9 years of his life pretty much playing golf full time to get to this point. And he absolutely skinned it on the back nine to win this British Masters tournament. What was it, eagle, birdie or something like that to finish with?
He got 2 eagles on that back nine.
2 eagles.
I'm pretty sure he got 2 eagles on that back nine.
Brilliant.
And one of them came on the 16th or the 17th
Okay, let's
hole.
go back through his last 4 tournaments. 3 tournaments ago, tied for 5th. And should have perhaps maybe got first or second in that tournament. Then he didn't make the cut. Then in the BMW, tied for 3rd, was leading after 2 rounds. Felt like he perhaps missed an opportunity there. And as you're about to hear when we play some quotes from him in a few minutes, absolutely confident he can go on from there. Who expected it in this tournament? Because this is one of the most prestigious tournaments on the DP Tour, the British Masters.
The British Masters, exactly. And he's a guy that's he's 24, he's younger than me, but he's been around for a few years. He's been playing golf in Europe for a number of years, because I remember interviewing him when I first started at Radio Sport.
I think since he's 15 or 16 he's been over there.
So he's been on he's got just so much in the way of reps under his belt that at the moment that he starts to pull it all together and get some really good finishes, it makes sense that wins won't take very long to get to.
No, look, it doesn't surprise me, but it does surprise me that it happened within a week or something. I thought that maybe by the end of the year he might have chalked up one. Is Vern Cotter the answer for the Blues?
Well, I don't know, but I guess the better question is who's better that's available.
Couldn't promote from within one of the assistant coaches?
Well, are they a better option as your head coach? I mean, some assistants aren't built to be head coaches.
No, that's fair. Look, I wish him all the best, but I think he's walking into a situation which is going to be very difficult to make any changes to, because you've got the same players with the same attitudes. Nothing has changed in that Blues side really since Leo McDonald came along. Bunch of underachievers.
Oh, well, no, to be fair, they've become a better team, because when Leo McDonald took over...
Become a better team at beating up on the sides they should beat up on. Who did they beat this year?
Hold up. The numbers say that they've been far better under Leo McDonald.
You can rewrite those numbers, because most of the teams in the comp are below average teams.
Well, they beat the Crusaders in Christchurch last year.
Who did they beat
lost
this
in
year?
the final, sure.
Who did they beat this year?
I agree with you, but I mean, you can't say that then they didn't progress under Leo McDonald.
I don't think they did. I think that semi-final...
Because can you say that?
They got to a semi-final...
and they lost to a team that's far better than them.
They got dicked by 50 points.
No, I agree. Well, they got dicked by 37, not by 50.
They had 50 points put on them. I think that says if Leo McDonald was staying, Leo McDonald would be going after that. What more could you do with the team?
Probably. They are a step behind both the Chiefs and the Crusaders, and they're probably on par with the Brumbies. They're better than the Hurricanes, I think, at least.
Good luck, Vern. First thing I do is ban their Instagram accounts, mate. Ban their Instagram and social media accounts. You'd have a riot on your hands. Tell you what, it'd be like watching Paris burning if you did that in the Blues dressing room. Can you imagine?
Jeez, why do you hate the Blues so much?
They'd be setting fire to the cars in the car park, mate. Is anyone else going to beat Novak at Wimbledon this year? We're going to ask Chris Jones about this. He's covering Wimbledon for us this year. We'll ask him about in an hour or so about this.
How many? He's got 6 Wimbledon
7.
titles. He's got 7.
7.
Isn't 7 the most?
Yeah.
So he's going to become the most.
Yeah.
So the whole thing that we had that was saying, oh, well, Federer's the greatest on grass. Oh, he's not the greatest on grass
anymore. No.
Okay.
He's about to hit Grand Slam number 24. And look, I mean, again,
he might not win. You don't know. He might not win.
Okay, name me one other player who's going to...
Alcaraz, maybe.
Really? Alcaraz, who bottled it in the semi-final against France because he was overpowered.
He's a kid. Be not.
He's 22 or 23 years old.
You are loading up your bow and arrow and just firing them at people unnecessarily today.
It's a big moan Monday, mate. All right. No one's going to beat him.
No one's going to beat him. But, I mean, you can't sit there and say, oh, he's on... Well, no, you can say that. Never mind.
No.
Yeah, okay,
I hope that the US let him in. I want to see him get a calendar Grand Slam.
He will be let in.
Will he be let in?
No, yeah. He's going to the US Open. Alcaraz is the top seed, apparently. How's Alcaraz the top seed if Djokovic is world number 1?
Well, because Wimbledon is allowed to do its own seedings. Now,
well, that's stupid.
And why wouldn't you, when he's the defending champion, won it 4 years in a row or something, why wouldn't you have him as your top seed?
Medvedev, maybe?
All right, finally, the NRL, and we're going to talk about the Warriors shortly, but the NRL, talk me through this bing-bong round. Tell me how one team can win by 74-0 and another one can win by 66-0. How does that happen? And also, does it make you think, again, how much the Warriors have improved? Because that, a year or so ago, or 2 years ago, would have been the Warriors on the end of those score lines, right?
Yeah. Well, the Tigers are a basket case right now. They are an appalling football team. They have been for a long time. You know what I love the most about the Tigers, by the way? So Tim Sheens is their coach. He was brought in last year by the hierarchy at the West Tigers. Tim, you're going to be our head of football.
Yes.
We need you to do a mass review of the team and tell us what's next with the head coach. He comes back and says, I've done the review. I'm going to sack the coach and I'm going to make myself the coach.
Brilliant.
And then now they're worse. They're worse than they were under Madge Maguire. And even better is that they're going to promote Benji Marshall to the head coach next year just to make matters even worse. No, the West Tigers are an appalling team right now. The Dogs, I don't think that scoreline against the Knights is a fair representation of the
Gunny's
Bulldogs.
going to talk to us about this after 3 o'clock. He's going to be positive about it twice.
Their entire team's in the hospital.
Mate,
their entire team's in the blimmin' hospital.
Their own fans were booing them at half-time.
And apparently Phil Gould is blocking the numbers of a whole lot of rugby league names and former Bulldogs players because they're giving it to him.
They're abusing him.
Mate, he's blocked Mark Carroll.
Has he?
Yeah.
He's blocked Spud.
He's blocked his number or banned him from some events or something.
You're the guru, Phil Gould, aren't you? You're the Grim Reaper, mate. What did you do for the Warriors? That's right. Wasn't he brought into the Warriors last year? And what happened to us? We won 2 out of the last 16 games. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app. And via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable.
Incredible. The Platform.